Hello, dear students. Here is a new lesson for you. It's a poem actually titled To Anactoria in Lydia. This is a poem by the ancient Greek poet named Sappho. She hails from an island called Lesbos. You are familiar with the word lesbian, right? This word comes from the island Lesbos where Sappho lived. You can imagine easily that Sappho herself was a lesbian, hence this allusion to the island where she lived. Sappho's poem is a very romantic one in which she expresses her intense desire and love for her beloved named Anactoria. So it is one of her most celebrated poems. Let us look at some background information about Sappho. She lived from around 630 to 570 BC and she was a respected lyric poet of her times. She also openly expresses her feelings and desires. As I said, Sappho hails from the island of Lesbos, and this island was known for the vibrant culture and the famous Sapphic poetry style was actually influenced by the literary works of Sappho. A lot of writers in the coming generations followed the Sapphic style of writing poems. And another thing is the Eryctonius ties that she has. It refers to the idea that Sappho was said to be a direct descendant of the legendary Athenian king named Eryctonius. So that is also a reason for her popularity. She was directly connected to a king. And another thing about Sappho is only a few of her works remain, and that too in fragmented form. We have only a few of her poems, but those are not in complete form, but in a fragmented form. We only have parts of it. So, based on whatever information we have and her remaining literary works, we try to understand Sappho. In this paper titled Women's Studies that you are learning in the semester, you have to understand more about Sappho and the lesbian love that she had. It is a way of making a statement about a woman's identity. That is why you have to learn this poem. Okay. So here is an introduction to the poem to Anactoria in Lydia. Lydia is the name of a place and Anactoria is the lady love of Sappho. So this is an introspective poem. Introspective means looking inside one's own mind. Here, Sappho explores her intense desire and longing for her loved woman, Anactoria. In the poem, Sappho uses a lot of images and these are highly evocative in nature. They create the real pictures in our mind as and when we read her words. She uses such a descriptive language, a lot of metaphors, and she literally paints a very passionate and emotional portrait of her thoughts, of her desire for this woman. The poem is written in Sapphic stanza. A Sapphic stanza consists of three long lines and one short line. This creates a certain rhythmic and melodic effect. So, the poem is written in a Sapphic stanza. Okay, these are some things that you have to remember before going into the poem. Here you have the poem, the lines from the poem. Some say thronging cavalry, some say foot soldiers, others call a fleet the most beautiful of sights the dark earth offers, but I say it is whatever you love best. Sappho says that according to people, there are different things that they consider to be beautiful. Some people say the most beautiful thing is a thronging cavalry. Thronging, beating with life, vital. Thronging cavalry. What is cavalry? A group of soldiers. So a group of soldiers ready to fight are said to be the most beautiful sight. But some others say it is the foot soldiers who make movements in perfect alignment. But then, according to Sappho herself, the most beautiful thing in the world is the things that we love a lot. In this case, the thing that she loves the most is her beloved named Anactoria. Before getting to talk about her lover, Sappho refers to another love in Greek mythology. It is given in the following stanza, and it is easy to make this understood by everyone, for she who surpassed all humankind in beauty, Helen abandoning her husband. So here, Sappho talks about Helen of Troy. Helen of Troy is the woman who fell in love with a visiting king. She was a wife and a mother at that time. She was the wife of Agamemnon and a visiting prince, the prince of Troy named Priam, was able to win her heart. So Helen forgets her husband, Agamemnon, and she also forgets her children, two children, completely. And she starts on this journey to pursue her love with this man named Priam, the prince of Troy. So she runs away with Troy. I know it may sound to be a very different thing according to the Indian standards, but uh, the Trojan War, refers to a prominent element in the Greek mythology. It refers to the, Homer's epics, Iliad and Odyssey. So Troy and the incident of Helen is from Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. Now, in the stanza, Sappho talks about how Helen, abandoning her husband and her children, ran away with the prince of Troy because love was more important for this woman. That best of men, Agamemnon was called as the best of men. She left her husband, went sailing off to the shores of Troy, and never spent a thought on her child or loving parents. She never thought of her child or her parents, but she was madly in love with this man and she went away with him. Never in once she regretted her decision. When the goddess seduced her wits and led her to wander, she forgot them all. The goddess here refers to the goddess of love. According to Greek mythology, there is a god or goddess for everything. So the goddess of love, seduced Helen of Troy, and as a result, she lost her mind. She left everyone she knew and ran along with the prince of Troy named Priam. So she could not remember anything but longing. Longing means desire. She could remember only her desire and lightly straying aside lost her way. She lost her way and she went away with the prince of Troy. But that reminds me now, Anactoria, says Sappho. That story of Helen of Troy now reminds me of my Anactoria, the love of Sappho. She's not here. Anactoria is not here now, and I would rather see her lovely step, her sparkling glance, and her face than gaze on all the troops in Lydia in their chariots and glittering armor, says Sappho. The love story of Helen of Troy now reminds me of my Anactoria. She is not here now with me, but then I would like to see her lovely step, the way she moves, her sparkling glance. There is some kind of light in the way she looks. And her face. I would like to see all that. I want to see Anactoria rather than set my gaze or look on all the troops in Lydia. Lydia it was a place where she was staying at that time. So, I would rather look at the face of Anactoria than the troops or soldiers of Lydia in their chariots. Chariot, the cart driven by or pulled by horse. And the horse chariots, their soldiers, the way they march is a beautiful sight. But I would rather look at the face of my beloved Anactoria, says Sappho. So the poem is clearly an indication of the desire of Sappho to see her lover Anactoria. Now, these are some of the themes explored in the poem: the love and desire of the poet, the fleeting nature of beauty. Beauty is not permanent, and that is why the beauty is to be enjoyed while it lasts. She also talks about the voyage of self discovery. She discovers her own emotions through the example of Helen of Troy. So Sappho makes a self-discovery here rather than looking at all the other beautiful sides, because when she lived, when Sappho lived at that point of time, soldiers, troops, these soldiers marching in perfect alignment, these were all considered to be perfect things, beautiful things. But beyond all that, Sappho likes to see the face of her lover. So that is a self-discovery for Sappho. Here is an analysis of the poetic devices used by Sappho. She uses similes and metaphors. The metaphor here is the love of Helen for the Prince of Troy is compared to the love of Sappho to her lover Anactoria. The poem is a fragment. You can see that the very first line is an abrupt beginning, and that denotes the fragmentary style of the poem. Mostly because the poems of Sappho are not available in full, we have only parts of them. That is why the poem is fragmentary in nature. But then this fragmentary nature of the poem makes the readers to think deeper, to get it, to understand the feelings of the poet in a better manner. The poem also has a rhythmic structure. If you read it out loud, you will understand that. The sapphic stanza gives it a very nice rhythm, and when you read it out loud, you can hear that. Here is a discussion of the historical context. The cultural influence of Greece is visible there. As I told you, the soldiers marching was the best and most beautiful thing according to them. That is reflected, that cultural element is seen in the poem. Then the gender roles is also visible over here, wherein the ancient time in the ancient times, um, we can say from the time of Helen herself, which is much older than when it was written. So from that time itself, it was a patriarchal society. But then Sappho, even though she is a woman, is able to talk about her intense desire openly through a poem. So it shows how Sappho was able to topple this gender roles, or she was able to redefine the gender roles. It is not just men who fall in love and talk about it, but females also can do that, proves Sappho. The power of poetry is also another element that we can see here. Through poetry, she wants to reaffirm her love. Sappho wants to establish in the whole world that her love for Anactoria is as great as anything else from mythology or from history. Here is the relevance and impact of the poem today, and it is because of this very relevance that you are learning this as a part of your syllabus. First of all, it explores the desire of a woman, the lesbian desire of a woman, and it is also an example of the empowered, marginalized voices. You know that the LGBTQIA plus communities are not fully in the mainstream and they face a lot of discriminations. But for such communities, this ancient example of a woman expressing her lesbian love is a tool of empowerment. So the poem empowers the marginalized voices, and it also gives a literary inspiration to others. She has inspired generations of poets, which illustrates the timelessness and the universality of the theme of Sappho. Now, here is a conclusion for you. We can see that the poem to Anactoria in love, to Anactoria in Lydia, is a statement of Sappho's exceptional talent and her ability to capture the depths of human emotion. She is very clear about her feelings. She is fully in love with this woman, and she uses all kinds of images possible in order to express it. So her literary talent and her ability, her daring nature in establishing her love, all of it can be seen reflected in the poem. As a result, the poem continues to inspire many readers throughout generations. And the poem actually bridges the gap between the ancient and modern experiences of love and desire. Hope you will read the poem again and make some notes on it. We will have a detailed discussion on this in the next class. So, thank you so much for watching. We'll discuss on this topic in the next class.